This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Abam. We're continuing on in the Iggeres HaMussar of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. And Rabbi Yisrael just gave his definitive view on the identity of the Yetzer. Namely, we have two koichos of Yetzer, the koich hataiva and the ruach hatuma. And Rabbi Yisrael said, "V'hinei b'shnei hatstadim yeshnoi b'adam gashni v'ruchni." The two aspects of man, the physical and the spiritual, be'inyan brias ha'adam atzmai gufani v'nafshi. They accord with the two components of man's nature, his physical and spiritual. Hagufani nira le'ein basar. The physical is seen by the physical eyes. The hanafshi and the spiritual component, noida, is only known mi pa'ulais v'inyane haguf, from the activities of the body. Like we explained yesterday, that we don't see the soul, however it could be perceived through various functionings of the body, namely when the limbs move, and the perception of senses, and the ability of the mind, and the emotion of the heart. And now they're very interesting. So you have a physical and you have a spiritual. You have a body, you have a soul. How do you keep the body and soul together? So the only thing we know how to do is to take care of the body. But we can't really address the soul because we don't see it. So tachbulais ha'adam, the trick for man, umazimoisav, and his schemes, lahachzik hanefesh beguf, to maintain the soul in the body, hemarak beguf lavada, is only in the body alone. L'toimchai, to support it, ba'achilois toivais, with good food, uveshmirois me'ulais, and by safekeeping it, mikol nezak upegara, from any damage and harm, uvezeh yishmar nafshe begufay, and by doing so, you guard your soul in your body. Ein mavoy betivi. There's no natural way to address the soul directly. Now, definitely in the spiritual realm, you could address the soul directly. That's what Rabbi Yisrael says in the brackets, al pi ruchaniyos, spiritually, lefi ha'emes, in accordance with the truth, ikar shmiras hanefesh, the ikar guarding of the soul, beguf taloi, is dependent on the body. Ikar shmiras hanefesh beguf, guarding the soul in the body, taloi rak b'nafshay, is only dependent on the soul. Lefi avoidasa laboira, in accordance with its service of the Creator, Yisbarach Shemai, lasos tagbula benefesh, to do some kind of plan on the soul, lahachzika beguf. In other words, there's no, other than ruchnias, other than spiritual means, there's no way to keep the soul in the body. Ki ein roya, you don't see the soul. Vein margish salvada, you don't recognize it as an independent source. Uma yeyasaba, what do you do? What could you do? In other words, like this: you have a body and you have a soul. If you want to keep the two together, the only thing that's within our ability is to treat the body. So, in avodas Hashem, it's the same thing. The says Rabbi Yisrael Salanter is something very interesting. Kain ba'avodas Hashem yisbarach shemai. Likewise, in the service of Hashem, ikar hatachbula lahachzik es hayetzer tov. The main way to strengthen the Yetzer Tov, lefi shtei hashitos, according to both opinions, again there are two opinions. What's the Yetzer Tov? Is it the koyach haseichel of what's good in the future, or is it the koyach hatara heyoisoi koyach hakedusha? Whether it's the koyach of sanctity, v'haseichel hanochain, or the correct seichel asher lo niskalkel. This is talking about the straight seichel that has not been ruined. V'lidchos es Yetzer Harah, and the way to push away the Yetzer Harah, which is hu koyach hatuma v'hataiva, which is the force of impurity and desire, taloi b'bechina gufanis, could only be treated physically. The same way we can only keep our soul in our body by taking care of the body, likewise, supporting the Yetzer Tov has to be done in a physical way. So to speak, which Rabbi Yisrael says, figuratively, allegorically, you need to feed the Yetzer Hara good food. Feed it good food. Now, that means you need to strengthen the Yetzer Tov by physical motivation. And you know what the physical motivation is? The physical motivation is you need to think about the physical ramifications of what will happen to a person, and that is to think about the Einshim in Olam Haba. That is the study of Mussar. And that is the only way to strengthen the Yetzer Tov. Hema, Hisbainanus, Hayira, the HaMussar, that is contemplating fear, and Mussar, Hanoive'im me HaTorah HaTahira, that emanates from the pure Torah. Hu Maimer Chazal. This is the statement of Chazal. In other words, so Rabbi Yisrael is saying one major chiddush. If you want to talk to the Yetzer Tov, we can't talk to it on a spiritual level, the same way we can't identify the spirit within our body. We can't necessarily address the Yetzer Tov on a spiritual level. We have to deal with it on a physical level. And Rabbi Yisrael understands that means to think about not some kind of spiritual delight, but something that the senses can relate to, namely the Einshim of Olam Haba. Says Rabbi Yisrael, Hu Maimer Chazal. This is what the Gemara means in Baba Basra. Bikesh Eoiv liftar es ha'olam kulay min adin. Eoiv wanted to exempt everyone from judgment by basically saying that, man, if you're a good guy, God created you with an inclination for good, and if you're a rotten person and you're a bad person, you have an inclination for bad. Eoiv basically wanted to negate reward and punishment. So what did he say? Amar lefan Ribbanu Shalom barasa shar parsais of sedukos, you created an ox with split hooves. Barasa chamar parsais of klutos, you created a donkey with whole hooves. Barasa Gan Eden, Barasa Gehenna, you created the Garden of Eden, you created the Purgatory. Barasa Tzadikim, Barasa Risham, you created the righteous, you created the wicked. Mima Akiv Al Yadcha, nobody could stop you. In other words, this guy, he's a Gadol Hadar, God, you made him that way. That guy is a Rasha, you made him that way. Nothing you could do about it. A tzaddik can't become wicked, a wicked person can't become righteous. And that was Eov's, so to speak, a blasphemous statement. And Eov's friends said to him, what did Eov's friends respond? Af ata tafer yira. You have nullified fear. Vatigra sicha lefnei kel. And you have detracted the power of tefillah. Meaning, they said, what are you talking about? A Rasha could change his actions. But you, Eoiv, you nullified fear. Bara HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yetzer Harah, God created a evil inclination. Bara loy Torah tavlin. He created Torah as an antidote. And Rabbi Yisrael has a major chiddush here. And that chiddush is, you could learn Torah day and night. You could learn Kodshim, you could learn Taros, you could learn with Toisus, you could learn with Rabbi Akiva Eiger. Your Yetzer Harah will have a field day with you, and you will be the biggest Rasha on the face of the earth, because Torah Tavlin doesn't mean just to learn Torah. Torah Tavlin means to learn Mussar, and if you don't learn Mussar and you learn Torah, you will remain, Chas v'Shalom, the Rabbi Yisrael learns, a Rasha Merusha. That's the Shita of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. Because how do we learn it? He's Medaikid in this Gemara in Baba Basra. Because when the friends told Eoiv, it's heresy. Why? They said you're negating fear. They didn't say you're negating the Torah, that the Torah could change a person. They said you're negating the fear. Bara HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yetzer Harah Bara Lo Torah Tavlin Bazeh. This is the Shita of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, Gadol Hadar, Rabbi of Rav Yitzchak Petterberg, Talmud of the Alter of Kelm, who is the Talmud of Chaim Volozhiner, who is the Talmud of the Vilna Gaon. That what? Tavlin shel Torah hi hayira hanarvas mimanu. The medication of Torah is the fear that emanates from it. Now, it could be you'll get a little bit of a medication if you learn Torah, because you'll learn, So you'll probably get up to a sugya once in a while that someone who lives with a nida is chayiv kares, and you'll get up to a different sugya, they have to guard your eyes, and then 3.5 years later you'll get up to another sugya that talks about kas, but your medication will be very sparse, and therefore the Jew will be very spiritually ill if they don't learn Mussar. Because you're right, if you eat broccoli and celery, then you might get some vitamins here and there. But if Chas V'Shalom someone has an infection, lots of luck. Same thing with the Torah. The Torah has medication in it, but it's not concentrated. And according to Rabbi Yisrael, the medication of Torah is the yira that comes from it. Kamaimer HaKosav Anal. That's what the statement they told Eoif. Tafer yira. You will nullify fear. Vihi bechina gashmis. That's the physical element. Muvenes le'inei basar, which is understood by the eyes of flesh. Siba refu'asa. This is the remedy l'choylei hanefesh, for the malady of the soul. Im yasim ha'adam libay v'navshay al yiras ha'torah. If a person places to his heart the fear of the Torah. Okay, and we're going to develop that further. Maybe tomorrow we'll discuss. Based on this, Rav Goldberg has an interesting chiddush. You know, there's a question, because women also have a Yetzer Hara. Do women have the tavlin to fight the Yetzer Hara? So Rabbi Yonasan Eibishter seems to say that when they support their husband's learning and they wait for their children, so they have a chelek in that Torah, and that is the way that they fight their Yetzer Hara. But according to what Rabbi Yisrael is saying, it's not the Torah per se, it's the yira of the Torah. It's the yira of the Torah that causes a person to fight the Yetzer Hara. That according to Rabbi Yisrael, it's the yira of the Torah, so women could learn MUSSAR. Women could learn MUSSAR, then they would have their own ability to fight the Yetzer Hara through the limud HaMussar that they have. Okay, Rabbi Isai, we'll continue this Be'ezras Hashem tomorrow. In the meantime, wishing everyone an amazing rest of the day. Kol tov. Good night, good night.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.